Welcome to the 21st episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This week we'll be doing the 1981 classic Time Bandits. I have to say, Time Bandits got a decidedly mixed reaction on when I posted it on Facebook. Some people were like, "Oh yeah, I love that movie," and other people were like, "That movie is crazy. I have vague memories of it from when I was a child, and I thought it was a nightmare." So, very distinct reactions, to say the least. It's funny, whenever somebody joins the B Movie Club, I usually send them an email or something saying, "Hey, let me know if there's, a request that you have or suggestion of a movie you'd like me to do." And then I usually wait until they come on Netflix, so they're streaming instantly. Occasionally, I can't wait, and I'll just do it and just tell people, "Hey, you need to go to the video store or Redbox or whatever." Ironically, the guy who's been my co-host a couple of times, my buddy Tori, way back when, he gave me some requests, and for some reason I never got around to them. Time Bandits was one of his requests. So there you go. It's not a movie that I would have instantly said, like, "Oh yeah, we got to do Time Bandits." But when he suggested it, I was kind of like, "Okay, yeah, that definitely fits the bill." I went back and, obviously I watched the movie. I hadn't seen the movie in, I swear to God, 25 years. And I watched the trailer first, and I'm just like, this movie is very, very bizarre, to say the least. It's still streaming instantly. If you haven't seen it, you can go on and watch it in its entirety. Basically, the best way I can describe it is there's a boy named Kevin, my namesake. Back in the day, all the kids were named Kevin. Now they're all kind of freaks and deviants in movies. We need to go back to all the kids being named Kevin. I always appreciated that. Anyway, this kid named Kevin has parents that don't really pay much attention to him. And one day, a pack of little people appear through his closet and kind of whisk him away through these adventures through time. Evidently, these little people used to work for the Supreme Being, and their job was that they built shrubs and trees, and they were recently fired because they built a giant stinky tree, and I guess the Supreme Being didn't care for it. So now they have decided to become bandits, go through time and rob people. So they go through time, they visit Napoleon, they visit Robin Hood, they visit ancient Greece. It's kind of weird because it's like they kind of swirl historical fact with obvious mythology and fiction and things like that. So it's hard to get a handle. At one point they go through the time of legends. The time of legends? Not familiar with that time. Anywho, they are also being pursued and affected by a character who's just called Evil, who's a bad guy who lives in the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness. And within the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness, there's the most fabulous object in the world, which I don't know if we ever actually see that. They kind of mention it as to why the group goes to the Fortress of Ultimate Darkness. Doesn't sound like someplace you'd want to go, if I had to guess. It's very, very bizarre. Just the idea of it, where it's like, hey, here's what we'll do. We'll have this band of little people leading whatever he was, a 10-year-old boy through time. The other thing about this is this a kid's movie? Because the main character, again, is a boy. Yet there's a lot of scary images that occur. There's people getting shot with arrows and shot with guns and falling and bad things happening, and there's things that I wouldn't show my kids per se. And typically, I have to tell you, it's like if a kid is the main character, I typically, I'm not a big fan. Let's just say that, typically. Overall, it's an enjoyable film, but again, it's all over the place. Spoiler alert: at the end of the movie, Kevin's real parents get blown up because they touch a fragment of evil. and his house is burned down, so he's left all alone, and then it just kind of pulls away, the camera pulls away, and that's the end of the movie. I'm like, is this supposed to be a happy ending or a sad ending? I mean, granted, his parents weren't anything special, but now he's an orphan with no place to live. I don't know if we're supposed to be, yay, Kevin? Anyway, this movie was made in 1981, directed by Terry Gilliam, and actually written by Terry Gilliam and Michael Palin. So it has a kind of a heavy Monty Python kind of touch to it. Michael Palin actually appears throughout the movie. John Cleese is in it. So it's got that kind of weird Monty Python touch to it. But again, it's like a kids movie, but it's got a lot of scary things going on. It's all over the map. When they were originally writing it, there's a part for the Greek king Agamemnon, who it was originally written with the idea of a Sean Connery type, but obviously somebody much less expensive, is literally what they wrote in the script. But when Sean Connery actually got a hold of the script, he was like, hey, I'll do this. So he's actually in the movie, which was kind of a coup at the time. They were actually going to make a sequel to this movie around 1990. And then one of the little people, Wally, suffered like an accident of some sort, and he became a quadriplegic. And they were like, you know what, that's okay. We'll just write that into the script, and now Wally's a quadriplegic. I don't know how well that would have gone over, but they said, you know what, full steam ahead. Then the character who plays Randall, who's actually one of the main, like he was like the leader of the little people, he actually committed suicide because he was upset about how his career was going or whatever. So when that happened, that was the end of the movie, which is obviously a tragedy. Tragedy that the guy committed suicide. I'm not sure it was a tragedy they didn't make a sequel to Time Bandits. Anywho, it's interesting to note that actor, the guy who played Randall, he, I guess throughout filming, felt that he was cast purely for his acting ability and not because he was a little person. And he kind of looked down on the other little actors because he felt they were basically just like props. So he wouldn't even talk to them. He wouldn't even talk to them when the cameras weren't rolling, when the characters weren't, talking to each other. So one scene where it's like there's kind of a mini rebellion where they're trying to take the map away from him as the leader, and they're kind of pushing him around and being rude to him, and they said that was actually how the other actors really felt about him. They were really kind of irritated at him, so they kind of let that come out at that scene. So that's kind of interesting. Also, the characters, all the little characters, excuse me, all they felt represented each of the original Monty Python actors. Like Randall was supposed to be like John Cleese, and Vermin, the guy who eats rats, was supposed to be Terry Gilliam. So it's kind of interesting. But it's like if you watch that movie, it's like Randall does, I swear, like 90% of the talking. Wally has about another 10%. And the rest of them are really, they don't say much. I mean, they've got a guy named Fidget who actually played R2-D2. I don't know how you play a robot in Star Wars, but that he did. Kenny Baker was Fidget, and he played R2-D2. So there's another little interesting tidbit for you. But again, most of them were just kind of props. I mean, they'd say little things, but really, didn't say much. So there you have it. If you haven't seen Time Bandits, it's not too late. It's streaming instantly on Netflix. Next week. Last couple weeks I've done kind of under the radar things. Next week I'm going to do the smash hit from the 70s, Smokey and the Bandit. Now, before you say, hey, that was a huge hit, that was a blockbuster of the 70s, this is true, I agree, but this was so long ago, I feel like people today barely remember how big of a star Burt Reynolds was back then. I mean, now they just kind of think of him as that creepy old guy with the mustache and the hairpiece. Back then, he was the young, creepy guy with the mustache and the hairpiece. So there you go. He was a huge star back then. Now he's just kind of, okay. So we're going to be doing Smokey and the Bandit. It is streaming instantly, so please go to Netflix and watch it. Send me your questions, your comments, favorite scenes, favorite quotes. As you know, midweek I'll be posting like a trailer from the movie. That'll be kind of fun. And keep those ideas coming. As you know, I end every episode with my favorite quote of the movie. Forgive my horrible English accent from the actor who played Kevin, who's shockingly not doing much these days. Or even at that time. His brother, I guess, was auditioning for the part and he got it. So instead, they saw something. He's going to go on to greatness, evidently. That was a big mistake. Anyway, my favorite quote from the movie, Time Bandits, totally out of context. Mom, Dad, it's evil. Don't touch it.